We recommend listening to the CW pod with a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Grown, distilled, well-rested, and bottled in Erling, Iowa. Now from the Channel Seed Studios, this is the CW pod, fueled by Steeple Ridge.
What up, and welcome to CW Pod this week, recording on Tuesday, the 2nd of July, and a little bit different, well, a lot different than last week where Scott Sipker came in. I do want to hit on that really quick before I get into Big 12 football. Media poll came out today. I would want to thank our sponsor, of course, Steeple Ridge Bourbon, baby. 4th of July, get out there and get yourself a bottle of this beautiful Steeple Ridge Bourbon. You know where it is because it's got the penny on the front. My buddy Pat Hoffman over there in Erling, Iowa. Oh man, this is really, really, really good. Really, 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 really good stuff. And I appreciate the sponsorship that they give us here on CW Pod. It's great to be able to promote companies that you truly believe in and you actually use their product. And I drink a lot of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. So don't judge me. You can do that too. I would recommend putting it down during the fireworks. A lot of bad things can happen when you're chugging the whiskey and you're shooting off fireworks. I may or may not know from experience. Luckily, nothing too severe. I wanted to talk real quick about the Sipker pod from last week because I got so much feedback from that thing. And I also don't want to overdo it on the politics stuff because I don't want to be a news commentator. Like, that's not what I do this for. But it made me feel like there is real appetite out there for actual conversation about important topics. But it's got to be rational. We had a ton of people download that podcast last week. It was really well received. And it was funny because Aiden, who produces the show, said to me last night, he's like, yeah, I was kind of worried about that. It's weird because normally I think that the majority of humans are, I just assume that they're all nuts. It's like, how do you get those two guys running for president, right, in 2024? You've got an insurrectionist and you've got a guy who can't talk. But what I've learned is I actually think the overwhelming majority of people want to have rational, down the middle conversations that can be critical of both sides and just talk like real people do. And that's kind of what I learned from that last week. We didn't have a single negative comment on it. And we said things that both sides of the political aisle probably wouldn't agree with. It was cool. I really, really appreciated the conversation there. So maybe we'll do more of that in the future. I don't know. Again, I don't want to be a news talker. I don't want to be a political talker. It's not what I got into this for. It's not what I'm ever going to be into it for. But Scott and I both think very deeply about things. And that was a lot of fun. I really did enjoy that conversation. In fact, we had people reaching out to us wanting us to do an instant reaction to the presidential debate. Now, we won't ever be doing that here on Iowa Everywhere. But this CW pod was created for me to be able to do a little bit more than what I do on a day-to-day basis sometimes. But today, we are here in the Channel Seed Studios, and I'm going to talk about football. Big 12 football specifically. So I don't know. We have some flexibility. Thank you for the feedback on that. I really did appreciate it. And I was pleasantly surprised. I thought that we may ruffle a few more feathers, but we certainly, I think we hit something that maybe that many of you Iowans out there are craving, and that's just rational talk and deep thoughts on a lot of these hard topics. So we'll see. I'm not making any promises, but let me know. Slide into my DMs. You know what I'm saying? Let me know what you thought about that, because it's something that Scott and I talked about over the weekend that maybe wanting to do more of. I definitely don't want it to be like a weekly thing. I don't even want it to be like a every couple of weeks thing. I don't think, because it's just, here's the deal about me. I know I'm an idiot. Like I just, maybe I'm not an idiot, but I know what I don't know. Right? Like I just turned 40 over the weekend. Many of you know that. Thank you very much for the birthday wishes. I know what I don't know. When I was 30, I didn't know what I didn't know. I thought I knew everything. You don't know everything. And I spend the majority of my time on, you want some takes on this Big 12 media poll? I can give you that. That's what I do. I don't know everything about the issues facing Hamas, Gaza, and Israel. Like I'd like to give a really constructive take on that to you. I know there's a lot of stuff I probably don't know about that situation, which brings me to the Big 12 football media poll. How's that for a segue? We go from Gaza to Utah. So I've voted in this poll for the last 15 years or so. I stayed out of it this year. I did not submit a vote. I was asked to, I did not. And the reason I did not, I don't feel like I know enough about these teams. It's really hard. It is there's a lot that goes into this, but it's really hard to get good information on these teams in the middle of May and June with the transfer portal, coaching changes, recruiting, NIL, everything. It's really hard to get good information, and it's because our media is not what it used to be. We just don't have we don't have as many full-time beat writers covering these teams. And a lot of them now, like your your papers and stuff, are now charging subscriptions, which is fine. They have all the right to. We used to be able to read it for free, right? Well, now it's like, oh, you want to read about Cincinnati, you click on an article and it'll ask you to subscribe to the Cincinnati Enquirer or whatever it is. And it's like, well, I'm not going to do that to read one article. It's so much hard. Like when I do play-by-play now for some of these like one-off games that I fill in for John and Eric, especially like when I'm doing the women's stuff, you know how hard it is to get like good information on the TCU women in the middle of November? It's really hard. So I held off on a vote this year. Again, they always ask me, which I appreciate. It's a great honor. But I didn't do it. I can tell you what I think of this poll, though, which I will. Arizona is the most overrated team in the league. I would fade Arizona right now. You see them there at number 5. New coach. Of course, the other coach goes to Washington. Really down on scholarships. And guys, it's hard to go from one league to another. Now, I think Utah being up at number 1, I'm cool with that. Whatever. I think that they've earned the right to be there with what they've done in the Pac-12 and Kyle Whittingham and everything that he has stood for 2 decades. I'm cool with that. You will not hear me argue that. I won't. Yeah, sure. I could make an argument for Kansas State. I don't think I would make one for Oklahoma State. I could maybe make one for Kansas because I think Lance Leipold might be the best coach in the state or in the conference that most people don't know too much about yet. But like Arizona, Aaron, can you pull up their schedule for me too? Arizona's, please. Arizona at number 5. 3 people think that they are going to win the league. I'm not going to say it's preposterous because they did come on really well last year under Coach Fish, but he's gone. You've got all sorts of transfers and all that stuff. There's not a lot of continuity there, and you're switching leagues. To me, that's the team you fade as I'm getting ready to head out to Vegas next week for Big 12 Media Days. Let's take a look at their schedule. Starts off absolutely brutal. So they play New Mexico and Northern Arizona. At Kansas State, at Utah for Arizona to start things off. The number 1 and 2 teams in the league. Texas Tech at home. I would venture that they are an underdog. Most people will disagree with me there. I would venture they are an underdog. They will be favored against BYU, potentially. depending on what BYU brings. They could be favored against Colorado. Maybe. We'll see. That's a home game. I would be right around a pick 'em with West Virginia at Central Florida. So you're traveling 3 time zones there. Houston at TCU, and then Arizona State at the end of the year. Folks, that's your fade. I don't know what their win-loss total is. Can you look that up for me too, Aiden? Arizona's win-loss total. This is going to be your play. This is going to be your Big 12 play of the year to fade Arizona. I'm pretty sure I started telling you guys to do that about 2 months ago on Cyclone Fanatic if you were paying attention. Iowa State comes in at number 6 here in the Big 12 poll, and I think that they are probably about right where they should be, but I would put them ahead of Arizona and potentially ahead of Kansas and Oklahoma State. It depends on how high you're going to be on the Cyclones. I really do believe that there's not a ton of difference between. So let's say Utah is number 1. I don't see a huge difference between Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State. Now, we'd have to break down their schedules and, because this is uneven now. It's uneven. No more round robin. None of that. I think Texas Tech is probably underrated when I look at this list. Definitely think Texas Tech is underrated. I would move them up if I had a vote, which I did, but I turned down. And I also wonder with Dave Aranda and Baylor, all the way down at 12, that's a very well-funded program. And it feels like Aranda is in the spot that Coach Neal was at West Virginia last year, where now it's everybody's counting you out. Everybody thinks that you suck. To me, that feels like a potential surprise everybody like West Virginia did a year ago. I don't know what the booster situation is like with Dave Aranda down there, but my gut tells me he's probably a better coach than most people think, and that they have some sort of response. I would also circle Houston at number 15. And the reason I say that is simple. You go from Flash, Dana Holgerson, Air Raid guy, Iowa Wesleyan, Mike Leach. Daddy loves him, but a lot of flash, not a lot of substance there. You look at Dana Holgerson's career, what he did at West Virginia. As a head coach, there ain't been a lot of substance. A former head coach once told me that I could go 9-3 at Houston. Of course, that was when they were in the American. This is big boy football. But you bring in Willie Fritz, who I see as a man of substance. I followed Tulane for a long time. They had the best uniforms in college football. God loves the baby blues. God loves them. He loves the baby blues. I'm speaking for the Lord and Father. He loves them, I promise. I don't know enough about their roster, but he is a man of substance. That is a coach of substance. I would be surprised if Houston is not a better team than it was a year ago. Does that mean they're better than 15th in the league? I don't know, but that's how much I think of Willie Fritz. So, listen, I don't have much of an opinion on Cincinnati back there. I have no reason to think. Colorado's interesting, aren't they? Isn't TCU interesting? 2 years out of the college football playoff championship game, and now you're still floating around here at 10. Great NIL program. The underrated teams are Texas Tech and I would say Houston. I'd keep an eye on Baylor, potentially. The overrated team is definitely Arizona. Is West Virginia overrated? Potentially. I don't know. I think you've got, I would put Utah 1, clear 1 for Utah. I think Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Iowa State are all pretty close. I think after that, you're going to have about 4 or 5 teams and then everybody else. So if you want to go through and break down the schedules, I haven't had time to yet. Again, I'm going to Vegas next week for Big 12 Media Days. They will be in Las Vegas. which is weird. I've gone to Dallas for this event for 20 years, it feels like, and now we're going to Las Vegas, which is just, again, odd, but we'll do it. Oh, damn it, I have to make a trip to Vegas. Son of a gun. But I'll be there. So there you go. That's my reaction to the Big 12 poll that came out on Tuesday afternoon. I don't know. I know Iowa State can win this league. Will they is another story. How do they get there? It starts up front on both sides of the ball. Can Ryan Clanton get that line to a different spot offensively? And can they get more pressure on the quarterback up front? Because I like the back seven. Again, like I kind of did last year, right? They just had so many damn injuries. Safety's got to stay healthy. You got to find a way to get pressure up front with 3 in John Haycock's system. I don't know how much confidence I have in that, but I think they have dudes. Skill-wise on offense, Iowa State is as good as anybody. As good as anybody in the league. Rocco, Abu Sama, those wide receivers, Bramer at tight end. Skill-wise on offense, Iowa State is as good as anyone in the league. They might be the best. But, can those lines take another step forward? I don't know. I interviewed Ryan Clanton for Cyclone Fanatic a couple of weeks ago, and I certainly came away encouraged with what I heard from him. I've been a lot of people asking me a couple more topics here, and then we're going to wrap things up. It was just a little solo CW pod here on Tuesday, July the 2nd. Happy Independence Day coming up. Presented as always by our friends at Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Talking about realignment. I don't think we're going to have any this summer. Watching that ACC stuff, to me, that's all like court type stuff. And even if there's any resolutions, it's going to take a year for anything to happen. I think next summer could be more interesting. But yeah, I've had a lot of you in my tweeting. I don't foresee the Big Ten or the SEC making any sort of a move or anything like that right now. I think we have a quiet offseason in terms of that. And praise the Lord, because I don't want to deal with that right now. Last but certainly not least, turned 40 over the weekend. And I must say it was considerably a better experience than I thought it was going to be. And I wonder how many of you out there have had this, fortunately or unfortunately for you, many of you have watched me grow up in this deal over the years where interests change, your responsibilities change, your just the way you view life changes significantly. I was dreading this. Even like 6 months ago, I was dreading turning 40 for some reason. But man, it was really special. Van Winkle and Aiden and my wife and Bloom's wife, they put together this video for me. It was like 32 minutes long of these people from every phase of my life wishing me a happy birthday and telling me essentially what I mean to them. And it totally changed my perspective. Within 30 minutes, my entire perspective on this event. It's not a big deal, but you made it feel like one, so thank you. Man, it was cool. It's like you go from when you're a kid and you want your new bike for your birthday, right? To when you're in your 20s, you just want to go and get hammered for your birthday. We're in your 30s, there's still like this, I think probably selfishness that comes with it, but then they don't really mean anything. When I turned 40, it was all about relationships. It was all I could think about. There was this transition video, part of this video, where it went from like George Niang to my parents to Jacqueline Cordova to Dan McCarney to my dear friend Kendra, one of my best friends in my life who's been battling cancer. And it was like all these aspects of my life came together in this one video. It was just, I told Van Winkle, who put it together, it's the most special thing anybody's ever given to me. But it's just, it is fascinating. Like when we all have these like moments where all of a sudden like things are just different, right? And I'm sitting out there at the campground on Sunday and I'm like, hey, this is kind of nice. I'm not hung over the day after my birthday. Right? I'm just watching my kids ride their bikes. I don't know. It was really cool. I'll probably go back to being an idiot here in the next couple of weeks. I hope not. But no, a lot of people reached out to me on Twitter and social media, and I haven't gotten back to everyone yet. And I promise I will. I wanted to thank everybody because it was really nice. It was really there wasn't a bad thing that happened over the week. Like I never had, not that anything bad was going to happen. I didn't have any bad emotions. It was all positive. It was not only positive, it was enlightening. Like I've got a lot of friends right now that are going through cancer who some of them are fighting death as I speak. Guys my age, I said my friend Kendra, who's been doing it forever, and it's just like, God, you really do just get more perspective. So thank you. I wanted to tell everybody that. I also wanted to say thank you for supporting what we're doing here at Iowa Everywhere. There have been a lot of shakeups in local media lately, and it doesn't go unnoticed the support that we get from our very loyal listeners and viewers. And when you guys like and subscribe and leave reviews and tell your friends, that's the only way we can grow. Because we don't have there's no TV station here, there's no radio like this is it. Like you guys, word of mouth is how we grow and how we keep doing what we're doing. And we appreciate each and every one of you for taking it in. With that, shorter pod this week. Got a lot off of my chest there. Thanks to Aiden Wyatt for producing as always. Again, next week, so we'll have two guys Monday morning, and then I'm going to be getting on a jet plane heading to Vegas for Big 12 Media Days. So we'll have a lot of content on Big 12 football next week. And we are here. I tell people all the time, 4th of July is it for me. Summer's over. A little bit of a downer, but it's the truth. It's football season, baby. Let's get after it. Next week, I'll give you some response on Big 12 Media Days, everything I experienced out in Vegas. Hopefully, we'll get a guest in here as well. Thanks to Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Go and pick up yourself a bottle today, and we'll see you next week. Later.